Yeah. So in this lecture, let's see how can we identify the SQL injection attacks. So first we need to know at what place or at what source there is a scope for these injections. Okay. So let me explain you. I'll just type something football in Google search, and now you see here. Let me take this into here. Yeah. So at the back end, it actually do something like this. We are searching for football, right? There will be table something in the back end. Okay, select that particular site from table name, whatever. We are not sure. Even here we are not sure what is the column. Something. Let's assume that Google table. So I'm just giving overview. It's not like it's present exact in the same way, but I'm saying how it will turn into SQL statement. This particular URL where Q equals to football. Yeah. So front end you just hit like this, but back end it happens something like this. It select column from particular table where that condition should be a football. So it will go and search for what website they have given search condition as football. Or tomorrow if there is something site like this, http some card.com or ecommerce.com. So here you are selecting product ID equals to 125. Okay, so you clicked on one iPhone, automatically it showed this link for you because that ID of that phone is 125. So backend it will happen something like this. Select star. If you have some basic about SQL statement, you will be clear to understand this. So if you are not having the knowledge on SQL, I request you to refer to my course Learn SQL in Practical and Database Testing from Scratch. So that is the course where you will learn everything about these SQL statements and how to write SQL queries and how to perform database testing for your application and for your databases. Okay, that's a very good course which talks the end-to-end concepts on SQL and database testing. You can go through it. Okay, so I assume that you have just basic about writing query in this video. Fine. So it happens something like, yeah. So front end on this website, you click on product, automatically that product details are displayed by showing this link ID equals to 125. But in general, in the back end, it looks like this. Select star from the product, whatever column, product, because this is a product table at the back end where ID equals to 125. Select the product where you have ID value as 125. This is how it will go to the database in the form of this query. Okay, so here you need to understand that this is secure data. I mean, there is no problem till here because if you are not sending any inputs, it's just going to website and is asking ID equals to. Okay, but this part is safe. But when you see this part, this is the area where you can send malicious input, just like what we have seen in cross-site scripting. Okay, so trusted data, untrusted data. In the URL, whatever given, even here, however, Google is a more secure and you cannot just go and hack this. But I'm just telling you that this is a trusted data. You are not passing any values and this is going well. But the parameter whatever you are passing from your end is untrusted. So here this and here this. These two are untrusted data, and this is the area where you can send SQL statements and confuse the database and try to understand the details of it. Okay, so let us try how can we do and get that. So before that, if you want to know the websites basically where they are exposed to these SQL injections or not, I have a Google Doc list. Okay, this is the list. in wherever website, whatever the site, if you see something like this in URLs, that means there might be chance for SQL attack. But that doesn't mean that SQL injection is imposed to all these websites wherever you have these links, but you can check whether there is a scope for SQL injection or not. If you see something like this in your website URLs as a part of substring, then there might be a scope for SQL injection. Okay, so if you want to get the sites which you want to test about SQL injection or not, first you need to know what websites there is a scope for these SQL injections. For that, just take any search item like this and do in Google search. You will get a websites and you can go and test them. Okay, Control V. Yeah, so these are the websites where you can go ahead and test because they have scope for a SQL injections. So Google has provided us some dark list where there is an scope for these SQL attacks. You can just take anything if you want to practice, and if you want to know for what websites you have the security attack, you can just go and type in Google search and whatever details you get, okay, you can go ahead and test those. So let me take one site here. Fine, I'll take this and I have a one site with me which I want to talk and discuss in this lecture. Yeah, so here we are. Fine, and this is the website which we need to test it now. And let me copy this here. Okay, however we have already here, and let me just give ID equals to 64, right? I'll just give 60 and let's see what's happening. Yeah, it landed on the same page, so you have provided ID equals to 60. And now let's interpret this URL. So at the back end, it's happening something like this. Select start from some table name. We are not sure what table it is. So here also I just gave a product as sample. We never know what the table it is. If we know that, then that's it. Then this is exposed to SQL injection. They can attackers can attack by just providing this table in their queries and get the information from that. Select any column from table where ID equals to some 64. Okay, so this is how it's happening at backend. Now if I add one more column here, and if you run this query in general, try this query in SQL editor, it simply says SQL exception. Because you are giving double quotes here, there is a syntax error, it tells you. Okay, if that exception, if we see in this website, then that means this website is exposed to SQL attack, because exceptions should not be displayed to us. Okay, if internal exceptions are displayed publicly, then attacker will know the confidential information by looking at those exceptions. So in general, whatever exceptions they get as part of SQL statements, they should smartly handle inbuilt and should display a cool friendly web page for the front end saying sorry, you are at the wrong page or something like that. But if you get some stale exception error showing in your website, and in that exception there will be clearly explaining some information leaked about that website, and that is a main door for this SQL injection to happen. Okay, so let us see whether this website is handling that exception or it's just throwing an error which is which it opens to SQL attack or not. ID equals 64. I'm just throwing a syntax error. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you can see that it has clearly thrown as exception and it's displaying for us from a front end. That means this website is exposed to SQL injection. Okay, why? You might wonder what I can get from these two sentences, but here you read this, you have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL server. Now we got one most critical information, that this server is MySQL server. Okay, this one. See, whatever database it is, SQL queries will remain same, but there is slight difference between each of these database servers. Okay, in syntax wise, for MySQL you have to write one kind of syntax, and for Oracle you need to write one kind of syntax. Almost same, but there are little places where you have to write syntax specific to that database. Until unless you know what database it is, you cannot directly hit the database with proper SQL query. But here, with just by providing one syntax colon, it's directly hitting the database and saying you have an error in your SQL syntax and this is your server. It clearly exposed the information that MySQL server version has not right syntax. Got it? So this is how I'm just showing you, but here you understood that by just providing colon it thrown an error. So that means it internally went like this. Now what attacker does, he write his own SQL query here. He might write something like get all the tables, select star from the sys.table, so it will give all the tables information, and if we hit that query, all the table information will display here. That means he is getting access to that table. After getting table, he'll go and dig into and get rows. Though he might not get directly, but he used some regular expressions, some kind of smart query technique to actually retrieve all the information from database. Okay, so we are not interested to go in that depth and hack this website. So here our intention is to know whether this website is exposed to SQL injection or not. Okay, so one mantra you have to remember here. If you provide wrong syntax in your URL and by giving colon like this, something like that, and if you hit that, the site should handle that exception and display some friendly URL. Rather than that, if it displays all those internal exceptions publicly like this, which is happening, then by seeing those exceptions, attacker can get all the confidential information about that server and what server it is, what are the tables, okay, and he can easily hack the complete database. So this is the one you need to check if you are performing SQL injection. So in our next lecture, let's see one more website and see how it is responding with this incorrect syntax. Okay, thank you.